Namo Om Vishnu Bhadaya Krishna Prushtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavhari Pushtatara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Kaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, welcome devotees just joined. Ramana Sukha was here, and I can't see his name. He's just dropped out. I should drop in again. So, yeah, we only missed two classes actually. We missed two Thursdays, so not. Although it seems like a long time, but it's not. It's only 2 weeks. But what I thought I would do to begin with, I hope you don't mind, but do a little recap on what we've done so far in our studies of Suddha Bhakti Cintamani, because I have these slides with the contents of Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for myself just to have some type of roadmap. And I like to see how much we can remember of what we read, because we know what it's like when we're reading and studying. Often by the time we get to the end of the book, we forgot the contents of the beginning of the book. Unfortunately, we don't have photographic memory. So I like to do that myself when I'm reading through Bhagavatam. If I read a chapter, then I go back and read the verses just to refresh the whole um, storyline or the whole progression of logic. So anyway, so Sudha Bhakti Tarmani, you can I won't ask questions here because it could take up the whole class, but just see if you can remember little snippets of what we have discussed. This was our first class, knowledge of relationship, Sambandha, and with a basic definition of devotional service. I can't resist to say a couple of things, but how devotion awakens, bhakti on Mukhi Sukriti. Then we described what it actually means. What is the seed of devotion? So that means following the rules and regulations given by the spiritual masters. Hope some of you might have some recall of that. Yeah. Okay. Then we had then began the big discussion on the semblance of devotion. Maharaj is describing in the beginning what is not pure devotion. That was the whole discussion. There are many classes on this, as you can see. Um, Remember these two, the reflective semblance of faith and shadowy semblance of faith. One is more innocent, and one is of the Mayavadis who may be practicing some aspects of devotion externally, but because their knowledge is corrupt or is not complete, it cannot be classified as pure devotion. And these two words were used, reflective and shadowy. There's only a few of us here today, but any thumbs up if you can remember that? Alexander G, do you remember anything that?
I actually forgot, to be honest.
You forgot. Oh no.
But if you remind me, I would recall it immediately.
Yeah. So reflective semblance of faith. And then we described the four impure motives for devotion. Chato Vida Bhajanti Mam Juna Sukrita Arjuna. Four types of persons approach Krishna. And the indirect path to Krishna through the following of Vedic piety, and three types of semblance of devotion, which I cannot remember anything about. Anyone out there can? Three types of semblance. Oh, that was Jnana Yoga. What was it? Astanga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Mystic Powers. I think, if I remember rightly. Yes, Krishna told me. He gave me a hint. Okay, so more on semblance of devotion. Remember, also subdivisions of subdivisions of subdivisions of subdivisions, and all different names of various subdivisions of what is not pure devotion. Then finally, ador. Then how mixed devotion leads to pure devotion. That's an important subject because generally we come to the practice of pure devotion, and we generally come through for various reasons. So we have mixed inspiration to practice bhakti. but the idea is it should lead us to pure devotion. So that was part one. So part two, we discussing pure devotional service, what it actually is, after describing what it's not, what it is, and then we went over this a verse by Rupa Goswami. Anyone can tell us what that verse is? Mother Gayatri, you know this verse? Nectar devotion that defines pure devotion. She's silent.
Amala Vesastu.
Oh, Dhruva's nearly got it.
Well, it's a famous one.
Yeah, very famous. Dhruva, try again. See if it comes out.
Amala Vilastu. I can't
got
get
it.
it.
You got it.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're doing good. Anyabilasata sunyam Gana Kamadi Anavritam Anukulina Krishna Silanam Bhakti Uttama. All right. So we unpacked that verse. We kind of Maharaj unpacked it in a wonderful way. It has primary characteristics in that verse and secondary characteristics, etc. Then chapter 7, we describe the secondary characteristics and getting closer now to where we left off and what is actual devotional renunciation in the context of the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where devotees do not live as renunciates in the Holy Dham mainly. So what does that mean for us living in the metropolises of the Western world and free from coverings? Okay, I can't recall exactly that detail. And here we are. This is where we left off last week. Qualification and advancement. So 3 levels of qualification, Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam, and 3 levels of advancement. Yeah, further discussion and about spiritual masters. So, and this week we're going to be carrying on with chapter 9. Yeah, do you remember that discussion about spiritual masters? Anyone can give us any snippets of that discussion? In essence, what about spiritual masters? What was that discussion? Oh, 1 second. One second, I've got my slide. That was let me just let Vijay Krishna in. That was just a discussion that just one may be a spiritual master, but just by taking on the service of a guru doesn't make one necessarily a Mahabhagavat. Okay, that was a general discussion on that. Yeah, that was that was 2 weeks ago. So I'm making you dizzy with moving all these slides around. Yeah, somebody remember some of that discussion? Just because one is playing, not playing, or one is serving in the role of guru, doesn't necessarily mean they get stamped with being a Mahabhagavat. Gurus may be, and often can be, may be greatly advanced, but the position of being guru doesn't automatically mean that. Yeah, one may be a Madhyam Adhikari, for example. Okay, any questions on that little synopsis of the roadmap so far? Yeah. Okay, welcome devotees who just joined us in the meantime. Anupama has joined us. Vijay Krishna, Ramana Sukha.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Bhava. Was you in Vrindavan? Anupama, did you go to Vrindavan for Kartik? Oh, she's muted. Okay.
Sorry.
I was just asking if you was in Vrindavan for Kartik.
No, I couldn't go, Prabhu. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's no need to be sorry. I just was curious. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so chapter 9, we did start this, but only a couple of slides in, so there's no harm in going over it again. So the qualities of pure devotional service, chapter 9, Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. Maharaj uses two words here. It's good to get familiar with them because they come up quite a lot in this study that we're doing. So one is satya and one is sadhana. Okay. So just like any activity that we do in this world, it has a goal. Yeah. Your job has a goal, or whatever we're doing, there's a specific thing that we want to achieve. That's known as sadhya in Sanskrit. But then there's a means and a process to actually obtain it. And that's what is your sadhana. Yeah? So your sadhana, the specific sadhana that you do, the means to obtain the sadhya, will be based on this sadhya. So for every type of sadhya, there's a specific type of sadhana. So pure devotional service has a goal, or pure is to obtain Krishna, and the process is called sadhana. Yeah. Now, this chapter 9 is based on Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu, also Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. So Rupa Goswami, he breaks pure devotional service into 3 stages. And anyone can say what those 3 stages are? Any Bhakti Sastri students out there? Oh, there's not so many out there. There's only a few of us here. Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, also for us known probably more as Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. 3, he divides devotional service into 3 categories. It can be otherwise characterized. There's in another place he divides it into 9, but those are Vaidhi or Vaidhi, Bhava, sadhana, sadhana, Bhava, and Prema. So Rupa Goswami describes it like that: sadhana, bhava, and prema. So we do sadhana to obtain bhava, and then bhava would then thicken into the experience of prema. Okay, so just quoting here, the 3 categories of devotional service are devotional service in practice, devotional service in ecstasy. Now, whenever Prabhupada uses the word ecstasy, it's good to understand it. Prabhupada's meaning bhava. Okay, generally whenever that word's used in Prabhupada's books, he's referring to bhava. Yes, interesting just to take note of that. So devotional service in ecstasy and devotional service in pure love of Godhead. So Rupa Goswami gives 6 distinguishing characteristics of pure devotion: pure devotional service in practice, pure devotional service in bhava, and pure devotional service in pure love. Okay, we follow so far? Here it might make it a bit easy, we can see. So actually we won't spend too much time on relief from material distress because we did cover this, but we're just touching it a little bit. So the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. The first 2 again is practice, the second 2 is bhava, and the last 2 is prema. Yeah, kleshagni, subhata, moksha lakhotakrit, sudulabha, Chandra Ananda Visheshatma, and Sri Krishna Karshini. I'm sure some of us know what these mean to some degree. Okay. Now, these 2, the first 2, Klesh Agni and Subhada, they are going to manifest when one's practice of devotion has become to the stage of nishta. So it may not be experienced immediately, but by taking up the practice of devotion and coming to the stage of being fixed in our devotional resolve and our devotional practice, this is the symptoms, or this is the result: relief from all material distress. Yeah. And okay, and so then we dive down into this one, freedom from distress. Again, we covered this, so I'll just kind of highlight a few points here. Again, Marge is describing here that we have to be patient. Yeah, Rupa Goswami gives that advice as well. in the Nectar of Instruction. What's that verse? Someone could tell us what that verse is? Just slipped my mind. Nectar of Devotion. Utsahan nishtayat dhaya tat tat kama pavatanat. So interesting, Rupa Goswami could have given many types of advice, but he's telling devotees to be patient. And why is he saying that? Because probably a lot of practitioners who come to him are impatient. So from Rupa Goswami's experience, when he's speaking to those that come into him for instruction, then he's saying, you have to be patient, my dear sadhaka. Be patient, you know. Sometimes we want the result like yesterday. So we have to be patient. So relief from material distress, it it does not come all at once. So it's going to manifest according to progress in sadhana. So the more we apply ourselves to sadhana and reach the stage of nishta, it will become fully manifest. Of course, devotees still go through some types of distressful, can we say, in this material world is a place of distress, but ultimately they have all blissful Krishna and the all-powerful process of devotional service to actually give them shelter. So actually speaking, devotees, when they're experiencing difficult situations, if they're serious sadhakas, they would take shelter of Krishna. You know? Now then Maharaj described, which is described in the Nectar of Devotion, is like a labyrinth of how it all begins. So I'll ask it as a question, where does it all begin according to Nectar of Devotion? What is it that makes one engage in unconstitutional activities?
Faith?
Huh?
Faith?
Oh, no, again, I said it, well, what is it that makes us engage in sinful activities, say? Ignorance.
Ignorance. Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't know. I mean, I definitely didn't know. I mean, I wasn't taught at school, you know, and the culture I was brought up in, I wasn't taught what is dharmic and what is adharmic. So I was completely ignorant. So from that, from the ignorance, then one engages in activities that bind one or sinful activities. Now, then then what happens then? It just paraphrasing here, that it creates a kind of, how can you say, it creates a kind of impetus or a desire to actually do the same thing again. Yeah, it becomes very prominent in the heart. So you're in ignorance, you engage in sinful activity, and then the desire to engage in activity becomes more stronger in the heart. So then there's like a cycle. Yeah, a cycle. You know, then you do that activity again and again, and you get the idea. But the point Maharaj mentions here is that in order to stop that, we have to we have to follow our regulative principles. We have to strictly follow the principles of Krishna consciousness to actually stop the cycle of sinful and then sinful reaction, etc. Yeah. So Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami, he elaborates on that, and but Maharaj, in essence, he described that we have to take shelter of the potency of devotional service. Yeah, even when we take up devotional service, even when we take initiation, we're still going to experience material desire. Sorry about that, folks. But, you know, it's just a state of our conditioning. It's a state of our material conditioning. You know, we have certain impressions from not just this life, but previous lives. So we become a devotee and we make vows. You know, but then we're going to experience what we were or what we used to engage in. Yeah. So so in that case we take shelter, and that's the whole potency of engaging fully in devotional service, because it can protect us from otherwise condition and lower self. So everything about the temple, everything about their devotional activities, there's a lot of potency, there's a lot of shelter there in chanting rounds, engaging in puja, doing service and associating devotees, and taking prasadam. There's so much shelter that can be had, and that's our only recourse. Yeah. Marge mentions here, serious practitioners may ask how they can remain enthusiastic, patient, and tolerant in the face of such reactions. It's because patience and enthusiasm seem so incongruous, difficult. So I'll just read here. To overcome the above cycle of sinful reactions and tangibly advance in spiritual life, the devotee must first understand and then become convinced of the extraordinary potency invested in pure devotional service. Yeah, so jump in. It's like a swimming pool, jump in, jump in. So jump in to the extraordinary potency invested in the activities of pure devotion. Then we can be safe. Okay, and here's this is what we didn't describe last week. Marge brings this out here. It comes up again later in Suddha Bhakti Cintamani, but it's an important point. Marge doesn't speak so much of it here, but he makes this, it must be stressed, that is the distress he stresses the distress that comes as a reaction to offenses committed against Vaishnavas. I'm sure we've all heard this before, Vaishnava Parad. Hopefully we have a fear of it if we've attended the classes regularly. It's often spoken of subject because it's very important. We have to be very careful that we don't offend Vaishnavas. Now, if we're practicing steady devotional service, it's going to subdue distress. It's going to subdue and purify material desires. But even if we've been purified to some degree from gross material desires, if we offend a Vaishnava, that's going to still cloud our heart, and it's not going to go. It takes some time to be purified of that. I think Marge, he quotes here Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. So he states that reactions to offenses against he mentions advanced Vaishnavas are removed completely only when devotees meet Krishna face to face and when they go back to Godhead. So they still linger, they can still hold you back, like trying to run in water. So you have to be very careful. And it may be that we may have to go some time without a taste for the holy name because we may have made an offense to a Vaishnava. Maharaj also speaks about this as well. But there's one godbrother of mine. I won't mention his name, but he was giving one class and he mentioned that he had a disagreement with a devotee where it got a little bit heated and some unpleasant words were exchanged. And he said he had to go for 3 or 4 years, for 3 years without a taste for the holy name. But he was a faithful devotee, and he knew, and he understood, and he kept up the process. I mean, I'm not too sure. He could have gone to the devotee. I'm not sure of the details. He could have gone to the devotee. But even if you go to the devotee, then Krishna may not see fit to free you from that offense. Yeah, so he went for like 3 years, and then gradually the taste for the holy name came back.
You had this before as well.
Hare Krishna. Is that a question? I don't think so. I think it was an unmuted microphone. Any questions or comments as usual, please feel free to unmute. And yeah, so Marge mentions even advanced devotees must patiently wait for their offenses to be nullified. Yeah. Just like a servant who may do something wrong you know, in the palace, and to invoke the ear or the eye or the disappointment of the king. But if the servant keeps on serving as he should do, at some point the king's going to give him, he's going to forgive him. So sometimes it's like that. I saw a hand go up and go down. Ramanath Sukaprabhu. Yeah,
Yeah, this whole principle of Vaishnava Aparad,
Yeah.
we hear it many times. It is a very, very important principle of our Krishna Bhakti. But I've seen, even in myself or in other devotees, it's very hard to really recognize. Now, you're mentioning a specific incident where this devotee was able to say, because of this, I experienced this. Obvious. So, how does a devotee know if their difficulties in Krishna consciousness are due to Vaishnava Aparad, and how to trace it back to understanding and try and do something about it?
Yeah, sometimes it's not clearly understood. So sometimes when it's not specifically understood,
Yeah.
it's not clearly understood, we have no recourse but to take shelter to the holy name. There's that famous example, was it Rupa Goswami? But when you saw that Vaishnava who, who was crippled to some degree and couldn't walk properly, and he was smiling great ecstasy in Lila Smaran, and the Vaishnava took offense. So it wasn't immediately understood by Srila Rupa Goswami, only later by
Right.
with the grace of Sanatana Goswami. So sometimes it's like that. And we have no, what can we do? Sometimes though, you have experience, you can, if you're really deeply introspective, sometimes you can ask yourself, what offense have I made? And sit there and meditate and see what comes up in the heart. Something may come clearly in the mind. Oh, you spoke to this devotee in this certain way, or something. That's just my personal thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Where you
Yeah, and sometimes it can be learned from other Vaishnavas. If you consult other Vaishnavas, they may point out some past offense or something. Yeah, I've seen it, or within our ISKCON society, even very advanced devotees commit Vaishnava Aparad, or of course the worst Vaishnava Aparad is Guru Aparad, and then disaster strikes.
Yeah.
Even an advanced devotee is not immune to this principle.
Yeah, but I got a letter the other day. So speaking about myself as a personal example, but I got a letter the other day from a godbrother from a devotee who lived in the ashram like 25 years ago. And he wrote a long letter of all the offenses that he's did from like, at least from his perspective. And he's written this letter to so many devotees. He's reaching out. So I thought that was quite not nice is the right word, but quite a sobering thing to do, to reflect, on your past 20 years in devotional service. And perhaps you've never actually asked forgiveness from devotees who you may have had disagreements with. So yeah, he was listing, and I couldn't even remember the things he was bringing up. I couldn't remember, but he was begging for forgiveness for doing this and doing that. Yeah. So this is Vaishnava.
That sounds good. A part of the process is being genuine, and
Yeah.
you're asking for forgiveness, not simply, "Oh, I'm sorry," and
Yeah.
then move on. No, the other person actually has to forgive you.
Yeah. It has to come. This is a whole seminar. It could be a whole.
Yeah,
Yeah. It
big
has to
topic.
come from the right place. I've seen it.
Yeah.
My experience living in the ashram. One time, a devotee was offended by another devotee, and the devotee just said, "Oh, I can see you're offended, so I guess I have to say Vanchakalpa Tarubhascha." It was completely unhurt. It was completely not coming from the heart. Oh, you're offended. Oh,
Right.
it's okay. Vanchakalpa Tarubhascha.
Yeah.
Therefore, he would have, suffered. We shouldn't, offense. So Maharaj is bringing this up here, Vaishnav Ninda. There's this verse here. Someone would like to read this verse here from Madhya Lila?
I can.
Go ahead, please.
If the devotee commits an offense at the feet of Vaishnav while cultivating the kripa of devotional service in the material world, his offense is compared to a mad elephant that uproots the kripa and breaks it. In this way, the leaves and the kripa dries up. The gardener must defend the kripa by fencing it all around so that the powerful elephant of offense may not enter.
Yeah, as far as I know, the fencing all around is association of devotees, pure devotees. Yeah. So again, this is in reference to the first two qualities here, kleshak, or the first one, kleshagni, relief from all material distress. That comes relatively, could I say, easily if we become serious and steady in devotional service. But then distress will come if we offend Vaishnavas. So dear devotees, we have to be really careful, yeah, that we don't offend Vaishnavas. And if, again, we're not exactly, we feel some, we're feeling lacking in taste and enthusiasm, then we may not be clear of what offense we may have made, then there's no recourse but to take shelter of the holy name. Okay. And okay, let me just. So the second symptom is subhada. Again, this is devotional service divided into three categories. Okay. Sadhana, Bhava, and Prema. So when this stage of freedom from distress comes, then one's life starts, you feel a certain sense of auspiciousness. And it's not ordinary, it's something extraordinary. Just consider that we have been, how many births have we been experiencing material distress? In how many bodies? Millions. And then we take to the shelter of pure devotional service and we become free from material distress after billions of births in billions of bodies. So one's life starts to become, you feel like one's life is good. It's auspicious. You're going in the right direction, So this is a symptom that comes from being just engaging in pure devotional service, the beginning of all auspiciousness. Let's see, Rupa Goswami gives some details here he defines all auspicious. It produces good qualities. Most people in material life, they are developing bad qualities and getting worse.
Busy.
Right, a busy bee. Okay, Mother Nita, or someone who has to mute their microphone. Okay. So, yeah, where was we? Yeah, so, yeah, Rupa Goswami says it produces good qualities for the material life means people becoming worse. Yeah, they're becoming worse. Generally, unless they're practicing some type of lifestyle sattva, then that's different. But generally, people developing bad qualities in association with matter. But when we're serving devotees, engage in devotional service, good qualities start to manifest. Yeah. Sometimes to the surprise of our parents. Yeah. Sometimes devotees go back home and they volunteered, they go back to visit mother and they volunteer to cook and wash the plates. And they've never done that as a teenager. They become very kind to their parents and they become like good children. Sometimes their parents are amazed. Yeah. So that's the process of bhakti, producing good qualities. So also gives a sense of superior happiness, a happiness not material. It's based on one's practice of devotional service. One actually experiences a happiness which is not coming from obtaining the sense objects, but it's coming from deep in the heart. Yeah. Now those two, this subhada, it produces good qualities, a superior experience of happiness. Now a devotee becomes somewhat attractive. Rupa Goswami mentions, and it benefits and attracts everyone. Of course, not the demons. The demons will always be envious of the Vaishnava. They will hate them. Yeah. Demons, when they see someone displaying godly qualities, they hate them. It's amazing, isn't it? It's so envious. When they see a saintly person, it kind of rubs them up the wrong way. They don't like it. And even they tried to kill a saintly person, isn't it? Jesus and now Haridas Thakur. Yeah. So that's a demon. So it doesn't, so except for demons, generally, yeah, for Vaishnava, this is just the beginning stages. This is just sadhana, the beginning stages, beginning of all auspiciousness. Okay. So then, any questions on that or comments? So we just covered the first two. Just check the time. Okay.
Yes, I have one.
Vijay Krishna Prabhu, nice to hear you. Yes, please.
They tried to kill Bhakti Siddhanta.
Yeah, they wanted to do a Bhakti Siddhanta. These were so-called Vaishnavas. Yeah, because he was giving Brahman Diksha to persons not in Brahman. Yeah, that's our whole history. Yeah, thank you for that, Vijay Krishna. So, for example, they wanted to kill Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Yeah.
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So Rupa Goswami mentions in regard to this here. If anyone has Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu, it's chapter 1 or 1.127. He mentions that only devotional service can give these four. Only practicing devotion can give real good qualities of the soul, can bestow real happiness, and can benefit and attract everyone. Actually, Prabhupada in the Nectar Devotion, he gives Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if I remember correctly, as an example of this, when he's touring in the forest of Jharikanda, and all the animals approach him. Yeah, he becomes attractive to the lions and the elephants, if I remember correctly. He gives that example. All right, so now we're going on to number 3 and 4. This is the characteristics of Bhava. So it doesn't mean that the first two go away. They just, upon those two, then these two will manifest. Moksha, Lakota Krit. So let's, yeah. So the first is, Marge writes here, the next two. So this ecstatic devotion, this is, again, as I mentioned before, Bhava. It's, oh no, Moksha Guluk, sorry, get my notes mixed up. Yeah. So it makes liberation seem insignificant. Now, sometimes we can read that quite quickly, but liberation from, this is the impersonalist path or the path of the Jnani, where they sense of freedom from all anxiety or from all kleshas in relationship to the body. And they experience a total, like an overwhelming sense of freedom through their practice. Some people experience this, if you hear people sometimes explain the near-death experience that they had, and when they leave their body, they generally express, I've never experienced such a happiness before. Yeah, they're experiencing liberation from matter. Yeah, but then often what happens, they go back in the, well, if they had a near-death experience, they come back to tell us about it. But they experience a freedom from from matter and from the body, so they're liberated. But this moksha, but in pure devotional service, it minimizes that. It's absolutely of no insignificance. The happiness to be experienced in the practice of pure devotion at Bhava minimizes this experience of liberation from matter, makes it insignificant. That's what moksha lakota krit mean. Yeah. And Srila Prabhupada gives us as an example of Kolavecha Shridhar. He's an associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He lived very, very simply in a hut with a roof by the side of the Ganges. Um, he would make cups out of banana leaves, and with his half of the earnings, the meager earnings he got, he would use that for his puja to the Ganga. And then when Lord Chaitanya manifests his what's it called? His Aishvarya form. What's the name of that pastime? When he's manifesting his form as God, then he offers Kolavecha Shudha anything he could desire. I mean, anything. And he doesn't want anything. He's happy just to have the darshan of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada gives that example. Okay, so that's moksha, lakuta krit. And Sadulabha. So it's very rare and difficult to achieve. Now we describe that. We're going to describe that more today. Let's check the time. Yeah, we're going to elaborate this on it is rarely achieved. Okay. Okay. Any questions on this? Oh yes. Okay. Sorry, it's here. Excuse me. Got my notes a bit mixed up. So why is someone could perhaps say? I think some of us might know why is Bhava so rare? Obtaining Bhava is
Because you can control Krishna through Bhava? Or
yeah. That's basically it. Yeah. Well, one is there's two reasons. It cannot be had by one's own effort. Yeah, you can make the effort, but that's not what is interesting discussion. You can make the effort, and we should, but ultimately, it's up to Krishna, and Krishna is, yeah, Maharaj writes here, Krishna is reluctant to give it. Now he mentions that if we practice devotion, it polishes the heart. That's the idea, Jeto Darpanam Amarjanam, and creates, say, okay, insatiable desire to achieve Krishna and obtain Bhava. That means you're doing sadhana nicely. If you're doing sadhana nicely, this may seem strange to say, but the result of good sadhana is you'll never be satisfied. Does that make sense? You'll always want more, more, more. You want to achieve Krishna more, more. So, of course, doesn't mean materially dissatisfied, but you always crave, you'll be hankering for more. So that means you're doing good sadhana. Yeah. So they're good qualifications, they're a strong desire, but they're not, they're still not enough to acquire ecstatic devotional service. Yeah. Because our practice of devotion is tinted by matter. Yeah. So we're practicing pure devotion, but it's somewhat tainted. Yeah. So Marge mentions that here. So there's no amount of effort or desire can transform it into ecstasy or pure spiritual devotion. Yeah. It's not as if some magic formula we keep on working on, and then bing. It's not like that. It's completely in Krishna's hands because it's coming from above and it's being bestowed. Yeah. So it's only when one ray of prema, this is what bhava is. It's one ray of prema, of the internal potency of the Lord that touches the devotee's heart. So that's when Krishna's mercy in the form of one ray of prema is called bhava. Okay. Then ecstatic devotion becomes manifest. So Yeah, so I just read this part here. But because ecstatic devotion is the first bud of love, so Bhava is the first bud of Prema, devotion that eventually brings Krishna under his servant's control, he does not easily bestow it. And then Raj says here, he brings up the mood in which it is bestowed. We have to become desperate, spiritually desperate in our practice. This is what as sadhana should bring us to. Begging. Yeah. It's quite, yeah. So Marge mentions when a devotee sheds torrents of tears, feeling separation from the Lord. And when they give everything for his loving service, and they're ready to die if they cannot attain him. Only then does soft-hearted Krishna arrange for this great fortune to descend. Then the devotees taste great transcendental ecstasy. So it's not cheap. It's not cheap. Yep. Okay, any questions about the London? Yes, Alexander. Cheap.
I was wondering what would be the difference between wanting to get Krishna and the other side is to give yourself to Krishna. What is the difference in mood?
Well, it's more or less one and the same thing. You throw yourself at Krishna's lotus feet. In order to, that's the process, Sharanagati, that we have to engage in a process of throwing ourselves at Krishna's lotus feet, shown in the 6 principles of surrender. Yeah, what's the 2 words you used again? Just say again. What is?
Yeah, the difference in mood between I want to get Krishna and the second I want to offer myself to Krishna. Because I know that gopis they're not trying to get Krishna for themselves, or pure devotees, and so I was wondering, uh, yeah, you.
Yeah, that's the mood. That's the mood of the loving residents of Vrindavan. They engage in selfless, loving devotional service. Yeah, so from that absolute perspective, if you're asking the question from that perspective, then it is exactly that. They want to serve Krishna, and that's described very nicely in the Adi Leela, in when Krishnadas Kaviraj describes about the purity of the gopis' love for Krishna. It is completely pure. They have no sense of no selfish agenda. Yeah, they have no selfish agenda. So they're not trying to use Krishna for their own sense gratification. They only want to please him. And a nice example is given. We know the story when Krishna has a headache. That's a well-known story. And he's asked what can alleviate the headache. He says the dust from the feet of my devotees. And I think it's Narada Muni goes to ask different devotees for the dust so that he can rub it on Krishna's head, and they're all shocked. No, that would be a great offense. But when he asked the gopis, they were more than willing to go to hell if that meant going to hell. Yeah, like if the head pujari came and asked, can I get the dust of your feet to rub on the deity? Might be hesitant to give it. Yeah, so don't touch on your question, Alexander. Good point. You're entering the realms, the spiritual realm there. Yeah. So the final 2, Chandran, can't pronounce this. Chandra Nanda Visheshatma puts one in transcendental pleasure, and Shri Krishna Kashini. Yeah. Now these are obviously we've discussed sadhana, bhava, and prema. These appear at the stage of prema, and they are exclusive to this stage. So Chandrana Atma Visheshatma. Sometimes Radharani is called this term. So that means incalculable condensed bliss. It means we cannot really comprehend it. Now I did a little search on this word. to understand it more fully. So, so it means condensed. So Sandra means condensed, intense, solidified, and complete. And Ananda, we know, means spiritual joy. So special manifestation, Vishesha. Yeah. So it's a term often given to Radharani, she whose very essence is a special and condensed form of bliss. So we cannot possibly comprehend what this is actually. Even trying to comprehend the descriptions of Bhava and what is experienced in the devotee of Bhava, let alone this Chandra Atma Visheshatma, yeah, condensed. I think there's a verse here describes if Brahmananda, or the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme, were multiplied by 1 trillion folds. Remember, we described that, of becoming liberation, being free from the pains of the body and the mind, the subtle body. If you was to multiply that 1 trillion-fold, Rupa Goswami says, that still wouldn't compare to one atomic fraction of the happiness derived from the ocean of devotional service, of pure devotional service. That's Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu 1.138. Now this part comes from Danodas Swami. If anyone's interested in this subject of these characteristics of pure devotion, there's a nice book by Danodas Swami called Ways of Devotion. And it's a commentary on Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu and obviously Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. And he very nicely explains all these different terms, because sometimes Nectar of Devotion can be hard going. But this book by Danodas Swami is very nice for those who are going to a study of Nectar Devotion. So he highlights that in all these 3 stages, there is happiness. There's happiness we described in the stage of sadhana. There's happiness at bhava, and there's happiness at pure love. Yeah. But in this pure love, it's unimaginable pinnacle of intensity. Yeah. So then Maharaj quotes a verse here. I haven't got the text of where it's from, but he quotes, unless he's just giving his in his own words, someday by the grace of Krishna, Guru, and the Vaishnavas, I too must taste that bliss. With that hope, with that strong determination, and with vigilant practice, surely they will. So that's the mood of a Vaishnava. Whenever you meet devotees, that's going to be their mood. When, oh when? When will I obtain? Oh, please, Prabhu, give me mercy. When? I am so fallen. When will I obtain that? Not that we have. That's the mood. Yeah, we met when I was in New Vrindavan in America. There's one wonderful Prabhupada disciple who's doing tour guides for the Palace of Gold. He's such an ecstatic devotee. He's so effulgent, he was in this mood. I am so fallen, Please, Prabhu, please give me. When will I obtain Krishna's mercy? Yeah, for me, I can see he's like effulgent, like 100 moons. He's definitely got a lot of mercy, but he sees himself as in no mercy. So this is a Vaishnava. Someday by the grace of Krishna, Guru and the Vaishnavas, I may taste one little grain. Yeah. So Maharaj then mentions, with that hope, with strong determination and with vigilant practice, surely they will. And then Maharaj is now describing a little bit about Bhava. I can only but read it. I cannot give any personal realizations of this, but Maharaj describes here, at the stage of Bhava is like a ray of love, as we mentioned. It descends on a devotee and it spreads through him like sunlight in the darkened room and quickly pervades his whole being. So your whole subtle body, your whole body and everything about you becomes illuminated with this sense of strong feelings of a love for Krishna. It's not just in the heart; your whole being becomes transformed. Yeah. So this is personified in the form of Radharani, and it attracts and controls Krishna. This is Krishna, Sri Krishna Kashini. Yeah. And it's so great that it actually brings Krishna under control. As we mentioned, that's why Krishna is rarely achieved, this Bhava, then Prema, because it does control Krishna. Krishna cannot refuse. He cannot hold himself back from this level of love of his bhakta. And then Narada Muni, he's praising Yudhisthira Maharaj, specifically because the Yudhisthira and the Pandavas, they drew Krishna into their intimate family circle. That's why Krishna went. That's why Krishna was their messenger, was their friend, was their well-wisher, because of their prema. Yeah. Pulled them into their inner circle and kept him there by our love. Now, this may sound a bit mundane, but can you imagine if we had that? If Krishna appeared in our house and then he was there in our house, living in our house, you know, it sounds a bit mundane, but doing the shopping and answering the door. No, yeah, but Krishna was in the house of the Pandavas. He was their menial servant for the Rajasuya Yagna. He took up the service of washing everyone's feet. He was a doorman in the palace of the Pandavas. So that's Krishna Akashini. It attracts Krishna. Yeah. And someone like to read this verse here, just coming up now. Okay, Alexander, you're the official verse reader today.
Okay.
Go ahead.
He acts as your servant. The impersonal Brahman is Krishna himself, because Krishna is the source of the impersonal Brahman. He is the origin of transcendental bliss sought by great saintly persons. Yet he, the Supreme Person, is your most dear friend and constant well-wisher, and is intimately related to you as a son of your maternal uncle. Indeed, he is always like your body and soul. He is worshipable, yet he acts as your servant and sometimes as your spiritual master.
Yeah. This is quite extraordinary. Yeah. Let alone when we speak about Goloka Vrindavan. But here, this example here, he is like he acts as your servant and sometimes as your spiritual master. Yeah. Now it's just hit 7 o'clock. So I'm a Pujari, so I have this bad habit of being punctual. So we'll stop here. Okay, like to start on time and finish on time. So thank you, dear devotees, for joining us again, taking up this study, and we'll continue next week. I'll give you a little flash review. We're going to define devotional service in practice next week. A very interesting discussion. What is it exactly? How love naturally awakens, divine grace and sadhana. How do they combine? The way in which divine grace combines with sadhana to awaken love. That's a very interesting discussion. And ways to attain Krishna's grace. Maharaj highlights the point here. Some Vaishnavas are of the opinion that Krishna's mercy in the form of Suddha Sattva can only be acquired through a physically present Mahabhagavat. Okay? Maharaj doesn't agree with that. So stay tuned for next week. Okay? So thank you, dear devotees, again. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, nectar devotion ki jai, bhakti wisdom ki
Prabhu
Jai.
ki jai.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, so much.
Hi. Buddha Bhakti Chitamani ki jai.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Marandi, Hari Bol. May you pray for Krishna. Hari Bol. Hari Krishna.